And really, what that breaks down to is at Better Way Health, we are passionate about supporting our customers on every level. And keep an eye out. We're going to have some of the ACES team in the chat answering questions live with us today. Now, before we begin, I do have a quick disclaimer. This presentation is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The information you will learn has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Also, another disclaimer, just because you take beta glucan does not mean you should go out and run 180 miles. Trust me on that one. Now, your time is worth it. Let's prepare to focus. Let's close the emails down, shut down the 20 browser tabs, put the phone on, do not disturb. If you have children, ask them to do not anything crazy for the next hour. I know it's a big ask, but it's worth it. Now, if you're an athlete, especially if you're a runner, you've probably been seeing news about the Great World Race everywhere. ESPN just ran an article on it this week. So we are blessed to have Natalia join us to tell this story, but from her perspective. Now, something I'm very excited for later, we have a very special guest joining us live for Q&A. It is the formulator of our beta glucan, the AJ Lanigan. This guy's like the godfather of beta glucan, and he's really the one responsible for bringing beta glucan to America at an affordable price. And he's the one that helped put together a lot of the scientific research that you will see later in this presentation. So if you have any questions about beta glucan tonight, you're going to want to stick around to the end for our live Q&A with AJ. Now, without further ado, let me hand it over to Dr. Ryan and Natalia Harris. Now, Dr. Lazarus is the founder and clinical director at the Lazarus Method, which is a cutting-edge health program where he teaches his essential elements to health. He's a board-certified functional medicine practitioner, certified nutrition specialist, and a certified personal trainer and rehabilitation specialist. And Natalia Lazarus, his wife, is an accomplished author, health and performance coach, corporate wellness speaker, and finisher of the Great World Race. Dr. Ryan, Natalia, the floor is yours. I'm so excited to hear what you have for us tonight. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Zach. Great intro. Can everybody hear me? All right. Are we good? All right. Perfect. Well, we are very excited. Natalia and I are very excited. We've been talking about this for weeks. And let's hop right into it because we have some great information. Natalia has some great stories. Together, we are the science in this story. And we want it to be entertaining and we want it to be educational. So you can take these protocols and apply it to your life immediately. Just quickly on me, I have been in practice for over 20 years. I am a nutritionist, I'm a trainer. I do functional medicine. I work with all kinds of people, thousands of patients over the years, from chronically ill to the biohackers and everyone in between. And I really love the professional athletes and the professional singers and the CEOs and the world record holders. And these are the people that are doing some incredible challenges. And I've had the opportunity and honor to train them in their endeavor. And I've learned a lot about how the mindset of these individuals, but really bringing a high level of performance using nutrition and supplements. And that's what I want to touch on today. But today, it's a little different. Today is talking about my wife, who is now in that category, who I had to train, who had the opportunity to train all the time for a year. And so this was an emotional thing for us. I'm way more invested and way more emotional. And I made her journey a top priority when I realized all of the details of this challenge, the details that she's going to share with you. And so I'm excited to share what we did together, the protocol I put her on, the reward that we both saw, and her story behind it. So very excited to get going. You know, it's called the Great World Race, but really it's a great world test. It's a test of every system in her and all of the participants' body. What I mean by system is we all have systems. We have the nervous system and the musculoskeletal system, and the immune system. And when I thought about this, I'm like, what are we going to do to help her recover in the obvious things? Her muscles, her tendons, her ligaments, her nervous system. But it wasn't until I started to realize where she was really vulnerable, and that was her immune system. And so when you do a very, very hard challenge like this, your body's going to get tested. Systems are going to eventually break down. It was most important that her and I gave her the correct protocol for her immune system. And then, most importantly, and I'll have her share this with you, why the hell did you want to do this, Natalia? Well, I think you should probably share that.
Thank you. I'm Natalia. Hi, everybody. And I'm just so grateful to be here. And I get asked this question a lot. Why the Great World Race? Why this race specifically? And really, to understand why I chose this race, you'd have to understand where I was and the point of life I was in at that moment. This is a picture of our family. Ryan and I are the proud parents of two teenagers, Sienna and Easton. And I was really at a point in life where I was feeling stuck and craving growth. I could feel almost my role as a parent was shifting and my kids were getting older. And I really wanted to redefine what this next phase of life looked like. And I had already really seen the power of setting big challenges become a catalyst in my own life for personal growth. It kind of all started my 40th birthday when I decided to run 40 miles to mark the milestone. And so, as soon as I heard about the Great World Race, it was all of my favorite things kind of wrapped into one. I love to travel, I love to run, and I love to set big challenges. So, as soon as I heard about this race, it just piqued this interest in me. And I have kind of a personal barometer of, if it feels equally terrifying and exciting, it's probably a good thing. So I sort of just followed that path. And luckily, Ryan was on board, not at first, but eventually came around. And we eventually signed up for the race December of 2024, which gave us 11 months to train, prepare, learn, make mistakes, test out protocols. Because honestly, it was so much more than running. The running sometimes was the easiest part of the whole thing. So a lot of the focus, ended up being on mental fitness and the nervous system, like Ryan said. And at first, it was just about trying to fit in the foundational training because as a mom with a full-time job, it required a lot. And so it was really kind of a shift in our whole family that ended up taking place. But of course, definitely worth it. And just to go over some of the training, a lot of it won't be surprising. There was a lot of running, over 80 miles a week, which included speed work, VO2 max training, interval training, and a lot of long runs, especially on the weekend. And I'm also a fitness instructor. And so the strength piece was really important to me because I just knew that there would be a lot of fatigue setting in with all these miles. And I wanted my strength to continue throughout the training process. So I kept all of my normal HIIT classes in Olympic lifting to continue building strength. I'm also a yoga instructor, and so that is a core piece of mobility, flexibility, and then just the stress, not always pushing too hard, really taking time to kind of take it down a notch. And then there's a lot of mental resilience training too. So this practice I still have includes meditation and journaling, just really trying to build focus and presence to make the best of the workouts that were in front of me. And then training my nervous system was really important. So you guys will learn about the extremes of this race in a little bit, but the sauna and cold plunge were the best way that I was working on training my nervous system to really stay calm and adapt in these extreme conditions and temperature changes. And as you can imagine, this was very time consuming. So I probably dedicated 4 hours a day to both training and recovering. And that surprised me at first. I have a lot of admiration for professional athletes because it really is a full-time job. 2 hours of working out in the morning, and then even if you're only getting one workout in, you still have to, spend an hour in the Normatec hyper ice boots and then, go see the acupuncturist and the chiropractor and get a massage, and all these things add up in time. But none of that matters if you get sick or injured, which, if you're an everyday athlete or a professional athlete on the line right now, those are the two worst fears. When you're feeling good and creating momentum in your training program, it comes to a halt if you get sick or injured. And over summer, that's exactly what happened. Training was building, I had crazy momentum, and I just started a new job. We were launching a product in the medical field. And when we traveled to our kickoff meeting in Vegas, I just picked up a bug. And it was probably something that normally would have lasted a couple of days and then I would have been right back to normal. But because I was already under such extreme stress, I could not kick this thing. So even when I started to feel better, it just lingered for a month. I could feel it in my lungs when I was running. I could feel like the pressure when I was running, and getting my heart rate up didn't feel the same. And it's kind of devastating when that happens because you work so hard to build up your fitness and then you just kind of feel like it's withering away and you've lost all of it, everything you've built. So we knew at that point, this was probably June. We still had tons of time to train and kind of pivot with our protocol, but we had to invest in strengthening my immune system because this was just as training was building. I knew I had a lot more to go, including the 7-day race itself. So enter Immune Ready. This was the point where we began this partnership, and I'm just so grateful that not only did they sponsor and support the race, but they supported my immune system throughout the race. And so I just am so grateful to have had Immune Ready and beta glucans on board.
Yeah. So watching her and her minor turmoil and panic with being sick and having these milestone mileages, we had to figure this thing out. And I know the immune system. I've been trained in it. I spent actually years in my master's degree learning about the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. And I will tell you, every single one of you, it is a very complex system. No one truly understands the intricacies of this immune system. It is extremely important. It is important because number one is it controls inflammation. And we all know inflammation as, maybe a cut or, you roll your ankle, but there is constant inflammation when you are training at the rate and at the duration that she is. And then if you say kind of immune system to the layperson, what they're thinking about is, do I get sick or do I not get sick? The common cold, the upper respiratory tract infection. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to touch in a little about the complexity about the immune system and really the magic bullet that we had about how we could balance and modulate this. I just want to also note that improving and balancing the immune system is always your lifestyle first, and it's your diet. It's not supplements. Supplements complement. There are powerful compounds. The ones that I'm going to talk about in the next couple slides that absolutely upregulate your immune system and help balance it. But if your sleep is messed up, if your diet is terrible, if you're stressed out, everybody that has those three liabilities is prone to having a suppressed immune system. And so I won't go into that, but deep sleep, a diet, your microbiome, all the bacteria in your gut, and feeding your body food that supports this microbiome is important. And then managing your cortisol, which is the hormones. But let's talk about the beta glucan, the magic bullet. So this concept of advanced immunity is fairly new. And if I were to ask the layperson or even any of you that are listening right now, what should I take to boost my immune system? Most of you will probably think, maybe vitamin D or vitamin C or maybe selenium or zinc or some herbs, and you're all right. What a lot of people do not realize is that there is boosting and then there is balancing when it comes to the immune system. We know the boosters. Those are the ones that I alluded to, but balancing the immune system is important. And I'm going to actually share with you a complex mechanism about why it's so important. But this is what is truly referred to as advanced immunity. It's the balance of the immune response, enhancing it when it's underactive and then suppressing it when it's overactive, and then modulating it and balancing it. So this is a very key concept because beta glucans work exactly with this mechanism. And then there is this concept of trained immunity. I love this. Natalia was training. She was training her body, she was training her lungs, she was training her immune system and her nervous system. But trained immunity essentially means that your innate immune system, this is the immune system that you're born with, your inborn innate immune system, which knows exactly what to do as soon as you are exposed to some type of virus or pathogen or bacteria. It knows exactly what to do. The trained immunity means you can actually train this. You can train your immune system to balance appropriately. And this is through lifestyle, and it is through these powerful compounds called beta glucans. So it's just some verbiage and terms that I want to explain before I get into the science about what she was doing and how effective it can be for you as well. This is a great slide. I'll make it super simple because once people start looking at things like this, they can kind of roll their eyes or maybe start checking their phone, but pay attention because it's really important. I alluded to the innate immune system. This is inborn. It's your body's quick automatic defense system against like germs, any environmental threats, parasites, viruses, even molds. This is an immediate response. On the right-hand side of this, this is called adaptive immunity, and it is exactly what it says. It adapts. So we are exposed to different viruses our entire life, and we create a memory. And this is like your body's smart system that remembers past threats and then fights them better next time. This is the production of things called T cells and B cells, and maybe things that you've heard of before, like antibodies. So you have this innate immune system rushing, and then you have this adaptive immune system, which is constantly changing, adapting, and morphing to all of the different environments that we're exposed to throughout our entire life. And immune modulation is the in between right here where T cells and natural killer cells live. It's a balance point. So you kind of think of this as like a coach. A coach is telling you to do this and you to do this. And another great analogy that I learned about many years ago that helps people understand how delicate the immune system is and balancing. It's like a teeter-totter. Just you go to your old playground and there was a teeter-totter and you could have two kids sit on it. We would see whoever was the lightest and you could stand on it. You guys know what I'm talking about. Ultimately, what we want, all of us, is we want a balanced immune system. We want the right weight on this side and the right weight on that side. We don't want to push this way. And sometimes boosting and giving too many herbs and too many boosters is not ultimately training your immunity. It's pushing you in one direction or the other. So it's how can we modify that fulcrum? Who's the coach saying where you need to go? You need to move here. Or how do we move that fulcrum so we find this balance? And yes, of course, beta glucan, specifically the beta 1316 glucan, is one of the only substances on the planet that works in all three, which does not overstimulate your immune system. And that is a powerful, powerful claim. And it's so powerful, I went and put it into GPT like everybody is doing now. And I said, what is the most powerful immune modulator on the planet? And I welcome every single one of you to do that as well. We're going to talk about immune modulators. What is balancing the immune system so you can actually train it? So you do not have to get sick. You can control inflammation. You have an extra level of protection. And that's what I'm excited to talk about in these upcoming slides. So when we learned about Immune Ready, when we learned about this secret weapon and what we could give Natalia to help balance it, I called this her personal trainer. I was kind of her personal trainer. She actually had many different personal trainers. She's a personal trainer herself, but we had these products as her immune personal trainer. So I started to build a protocol using these. And it was, in addition to many other things, we weren't neglecting her nervous system or adrenal system. We were just optimizing her immune system. Because again, if she got sick again, the sacrifice of training and what she would miss out could be detrimental to her challenge. And so we added the secret weapon to the mix. Tal, you want to talk about your training and how you used it for a little?
Yes, definitely. And that was my nickname for it, was the secret weapon. What I loved about this protocol, and Immune Ready, especially the drinks, is that it fit into my life. If you remember couple slides ago, I'm already struggling as a working mom trying to fit in the training and the recovery. And so if this was going to be, you know, really cumbersome and require a lot, it just wasn't going to be sustainable and wasn't work. And so this was just very simple. It's a very simple addition. And the Immune Ready daily drinks are so enjoyable that I looked forward to it. And it actually fit into our whole family. Um, and so it was a very good complement to my training. And then once I was able to finally start building back into my training, I noticed a difference right away. And it wasn't about just not getting sick anymore. I could feel my overall endurance improve and the quality of my workouts improve. And again, if you're an athlete or an everyday athlete, you just know the importance of you're in there, you're working hard, and you want it to be meaningful. And I had started months earlier, right around the time I was getting sick. I was training so hard that by the time, you know, I would leave for my workout 5:30 in the morning, run for a couple hours, and then by the time I was leaving for work, driving to the city, I was falling asleep on my way to work. And so I was really struggling early in my training and just having enough energy to get through the workout, but then also to continue on with my day. And so once I incorporated this into my protocol, I had enough energy to sustain the workout and everything else I needed to do during the day. I felt like I was maximizing my training, not by doing more, but just by being more efficient by what I was doing. And so that's where the secret weapon name came in.
Right. So let's talk about her secret weapon, and obviously a term that many people are familiar with. You know, I remember learning about this in my training in functional medicine when we had the immune module. And you know, beta glucan kind of, you know, just the term was part of many different terms of supporting the immune system. And I knew that they were part of mushrooms. I knew they were part of yeasts. And I didn't realize they're also parts of oats and barley. But what they really are is they're these like natural fiber-like molecules found in the cell walls of these things, of yeast and mushroom, oats and barley. So it's like the building block or the scaffolding that helps these organisms stay strong, and it helps them hold their shape. And so that's like beta glucan 101. When it's extracted and purified, that's when we start really having these massive immune benefits. And that's where all the studies have been shown these different types of beta glucans and what they actually do. And I'll certainly go into exactly the mechanisms. Um, but these beta glucans are not all created equal. They're different. They're different in the binding sites, in the molecular structure, and how they work, and obviously the dosage. But what they are probably one of the most powerful tools for immune support and balancing in the world. And I believe, after what we've seen and what Natalia will tell you about, everybody should be taking them, not only endurance athletes. So I want to talk about just a little bit of physiology, just to geek out, because really, this intrigues me, and I hope it intrigues you too. So I would love to see a show of hands, but there's so many of you, I'm not going to do it. So I will believe you if you nod your head. But how many of you know what percent of your immune system is where? Do you think it is in your skin, in your lungs, in your mouth, in your spleen, or in your gut? Well, obviously, I can't see. I would love to see it on the chat. Yes. And everyone can start seeing that too. A lot of people, it's becoming, I guess, common knowledge, but many people still don't know this. It is in your gut, and it's actually something called GALT, G-A-L-T, gut-associated lymphatic tissue. And the studies are different. Some say 70% of your immune system is in the gut. Some say as many as 80 plus. But let's just be safe and say between 70 and 80% of every one of your immune system is in your colon, in your gut. And that's why it's super important that your gut health is absolutely emphasized. That's where probiotics come in, and that's why your diet is super important. But this is also where beta glucans exert its mechanisms. And so it's actually, you consume it, it is absorbed in your ileum, which is part of the small intestine, and it moves in through these things called enterocytes, which is the cell lining of your gut. And it opens up, and you have these patches in there. You can see that they're called Peyer's patches. And that's where these pyropatches is, there's these M cells. They grab these individual beta glucans and they transport it deeper into the immune system, into the cell. And then it's handed off to these phagocytes that are transported to the lymphatic system, and it's broken down into these very, very small fragments. And these small fragments are presented to all of these immune cells. These are things like neutrophils and natural killer cells. This is all part of our innate immune system that is basically there surveying, waiting for something. And so it's basically, you consume it, it's handing this specific beta glucan and it binds to this. And it's called the binding to the dectin-1 receptor, and it turns on this immune function. And so it's basically, these immune cells are turned off. Here comes the beta glucan. It binds the beta glucan 1316, binds to this dectin molecule, turns it on. And once they're activated, they're essentially released to seek out and eliminate threats that they find, anything that should not be there. Viruses, bacterial, any abnormal cells. And abnormal cells can also be parts of you. So it could be external, but your immune system is, remember, surveying all kinds of things. And so this is where the mechanism first starts. And then, make sure my slide catches up. Here is a slide, and I'm obviously very excited about this, but and you could use it too next time you're talking to your friends or playing, Trivial Pursuit. You'll really, really impress them by saying the dectin-1 receptor plays a crucial role in innate immunity. And it is known as the glucan receptor, actually in the medical terms. And so it is specifically there to recognize and bind to beta glucans. So we're not taking, some supplement that is foreign, and we hope, your immune system boosts and these neutrophils and these natural killer cells start to move around. You're actually using this primitive innate mechanism that it was determined to do. And so now it's about finding the right beta glucan for the right purpose at the right dose, taken at the right time. So here is one more slide. Again, I jumped the gun. I just showing you that beta glucans increase natural killer cells. That is the fastest way to boost your immune system and then ultimately balance it. Now, I will end my geekness on this, but I was with the scientific team at Better Way Health, and we talked about the study, and I thought it was extremely cool too. And I just want to explain it and show it for anyone who loves biochemistry or organic chemistry. And if you don't, you'll find it interesting anyways. These are both dectin receptors. In the blue, the three kind of round blue areas are the beta glucans, and they are binding to these dectin receptors. It's literally a handshake. It's like a key in a lock. And that's really how our body works is, there's the right stimulus that finds the right ligand and the right receptor. And then basically these match and it turns on a mechanism in our body. And this is actually shown, and you can find this in the studies as well, of a dectin that is on an immune cell binding to these beta glucans. And again, not all these beta glucans are created equal. The binding strength is different. So some have what's called a 1,3 binding. This is just the structure of the beta glucan, and that has a weak binding affinity as compared to the 1,3,1,6. And Better Way Health has terms this the BWH-85, and it is unique to Better Way Health. It is their unique beta glucan, which shows a extremely strong binding site. So let's see if my slide will work. Yeah, perfect. So here was my really lame attempt through AI on Grok to try to give you an analogy that I think everyone will appreciate. It didn't quite do it, but you'll get the point here. Let's say you're under a pull-up bar and you jump up and you grab the bar. And if you grab the bar and you don't grab it well enough, maybe you're holding on by just kind of your two tops or three index fingers, and you're holding on for dear life. That is not a strong binding site. You will eventually break from that binding site. You will fall. Whereas the 1316, you're jumping, you're grabbing it, you have a full grip on there and you can hold on it. That is the difference between beta glucans that you might find in different immune supplements and the specific one that is found in all of Better Way Health's products, which is the 85 molecule. It contains the strongest grip. And that's why when we found out about this, we're like, we're not changing anything. We're making sure we're getting the correct dose, which we'll get into at the right time of this correct binding site. So we learned about this. We put her on the protocol, and then I started to understand how beta glucans work with all kinds of different athletes. And it doesn't even matter if it's a hard endurance race like what she did. It could be any athlete doing anything. And it could even be really a sedentary person or a weekend warrior. I didn't realize how beneficial it is for almost any endurance athlete or anyone that is participating in exercise. There's tons of studies that show how beta glucan supplementation will influence immune function and physical recovery. And I want to just at least touch on the ones that I felt were the most important and share with you why it's important. And then Natalia will tell you, obviously, how that influenced how her performance was. So before I get into that, Natalia, I really think you should talk about like your sizzle stats. We're creating kind of a cool video for her right now, and we presented these stats to the editor, and it blew him away. So I want you to just share and put in context what you actually were doing, and all of the sizzle stats that we have talked about. So I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, so you guys already know the biggest one, 7 marathons in 7 days on all 7 continents, which of course, heavy mileage, lack of sleep, temperature swing, and zero recovery, all of that is sort of a given, right? But really, what this was for us, the almost 60 racers that did this race, was 183.4 miles, 38,000 miles across the globe, 60 hours in the sky, crossing 40 different time zones. Temperatures ranging from -20 in Antarctica with a wind chill. Remember, this is at midnight, to over 100 degrees in Cartagena, which was crushing humidity. So that's a 120-degree shift in just, a couple of days as far as temperature. And each night we slept less than 3 hours a night. All of our nights of sleep were on an airplane. 500,000 foot strikes for me, 500,000 foot strikes on an injured leg. And then each day, you can just imagine the swelling and the inflammation are compounding. And so a small blister on your foot, in the first day isn't a big deal, but then, it starts to swell the next day, and the small blister becomes a big blister, and then it's got a friend on the next toe. And it just was like that for your whole body every single day. The inflammation and the swelling just increased. So by, after day 4, 5, 6, you're inflamed, potentially injured with a compromised immune system, and you still are barely halfway through the race.
Before I get into the protocol, can you, for people, maybe everyone that doesn't know the map of where you went, can you just explain the map of the races?
Yes. Yeah, we started in Cape Town, South Africa, and flew down to Antarctica for Marathon 2 right at midnight. So those 2 marathons were in the same 24-hour period. And then from there, we flew back to Cape Town to get on our long-term plane, our chartered flight that would take us around the rest of the world. So there was one plane that took us to and from Antarctica, a special plane that can land on ice because there's no airport there. And then after that, we were on the same plane around the rest of the world. So one was Cape Town, South Africa. 2 was Antarctica. 3 was Perth, Australia. 4 was Abu Dhabi for Asia. 5 is Portugal, Europe. And then we flew to Cartagena for number 6, and then up to Miami for 7.
Yeah, so we did the math, and she crossed 40 time zones in 1 week. And so if you want to talk about a lot of travel, But we looked at the stats of that, and that's more than most people do in their entire lifetime. And you kind of breezed over it, but you didn't sleep a lot.
No,
And
and even more than that, sorry to interrupt, but we didn't really feel, at least I didn't feel like there was a time zone. I mean, I think there's a thing, where you have jet lag when you are, traveling to one destination and you wake up and it's a 12-hour difference, but we didn't really have time to acclimate to any time zone. And I think the first few days it was just daylight for like constantly for 3 days. And so there wasn't even time to adjust. It was just kind of this constant adrenaline situation where you sleep when you can, sometimes, 10 minutes on the bus ride to the race start, and sometimes, a couple hours at night on the plane. But yeah, it was truly a test of all the systems, I would say.
yeah, I will get into this concept of the open window, which is really important, and I'll just define it right now. But it's a period of time after a hard endurance run or event or competition in which your immune system is suppressed. Every human will have this. And there's usually an environment that causes that. It's you're not meeting your caloric needs, or your nutrition isn't good, or the sleep is compromised, the stress level is high. Um, and you basically were in a 1 week having one open window, which I just want to set the stage. Very compromised immune system, and we'll get into how other people felt during that. But it's very hard for me to even still conceptualize that. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and if I go to bed 2 hours later, I feel completely off. I couldn't even imagine this, and so I just again want to take an opportunity to have you share what the degree and the magnitude of the challenge, and then what these magic weapons or secret weapons did for you. So what we have here is what I put her on specifically for her immunity, and this was pre, during, and post. Equally important, every single one of them. I'll get into dosage, and for those that are familiar with the different formulations, there the beta glucans with Better Way Health, there are different dosages, but I put her on two 500 milligrams, equaling 1 gram the beta glucans for a specific reason, which I'll share. And then she loved these drinks. The drinks were like what you look forward to, and our kids loved them, and they would, our kids play sports, and they would drink them, and they would get into our friends. We were actually kind of upset because the friends started loving it. And so yeah, there's some great flavors on there as well, and so you would use that because there's other immune components in there, as well as some electrolytes. We knew her vitamin D3 level through a lab, and I wanted her at 10,000 IUs just to get her around 85 to 90 milligrams per deciliter. So I wanted her D3 level fine. 5 grams of buffered vitamin C. Those are boosters. We would never give 5 grams all at once. That can cause diarrhea. So we broke it up into 2 or 3 times per day. And then I gave her 30 milligrams of zinc. So this was pre, during, and post. We modified a little bit after. So I just want to share that. And then I'll kind of get into what my recommendations are at the end of this. I also had her on like the essentials, a multivitamin. She was on 1 gram of fish oil, EPA, DHA, eicosapentaenoic acid, deoxyhexanoic acid. Everyone should be on that, or you should be eating cold water fish because that's an essential fatty acid. It's very important for overall health, immunity, and inflammation. Her cortisol levels were fluctuating from all of this training, and so I gave her adrenal support. Panax ginseng, rhodiola, adaptogenic herbs, ashwagandha. She was on those. I love turmeric. It's nature's ibuprofen, and so I had her on 500 milligrams of that. And then nicotinamide riboside, that is called NR, or for those that are familiar, this is a precursor to NAD, and it kind of boosts the mitochondria. So it was important that her cell and her metabolism was working at a full function. I had her on 5 to 10 grams of creatine, and then I just made sure she was taking some whey as well. So I just went there. She had a full stack, but we will explain how important the immune part was of that. So I just want to at least share that. Okay, let's get into like really the meat of this presentation, and that is the science. What we're talking about is not theory or you know postulation or hypothesis. The Better Way Health team and the scientific team just laid it out, and it's beyond impressive. And so I'm just going to share, the take home of these. URTI, that's upper respiratory tract infection. Guess what? That's the common cold. That's the coughing and the sneezing. I mean, we all know what that is, and it's a huge deal for runners, right? If there's cardiovascular pulmonary issues, that is severely compromising their ability to breathe in and out and modify their VO2. And so this research was very powerful in realizing the effectiveness of these beta glucan on the minimizing of these upper respiratory tract infections. This study talks about the open window risk. Remember, I alluded to it in a couple slides about whenever you're training hard, there is this kind of latency period after, and you're very vulnerable. And that's when people are exposed to certain bugs that could cause some upper respiratory risk. So the short of this is this study involved 75 marathon runners who took either a beta glucan supplement or a placebo for 4 weeks after their race. So they ran, they took the beta glucan or placebo. The researchers basically wanted to see if the supplement would stop them from getting colds and also in the study improve their mood. So the results showed the runners taking the beta glucan had fewer cold symptoms, felt healthier, and reported having more energy and less fatigue than the runners who took the placebo. So that is statistically significant. It's in the study. In fact, the stats, 68% of the placebo group, so the ones that did not take it, reported having an upper respiratory infection at week 2. Whereas the people that took 250 milligram of the beta glucan, only 32% of those. And then here's the kicker. The people that took 500 milligrams of the beta glucan, only 24% of them reported similar symptom. So we're talking about a gap, a delta of 68 to 24%. That is very statistically significant when you start looking at studies. And that's why I gave her 2 500 milligram capsules in the protocols. I wanted her to have that ultimate dose. So
Yeah,
Tal,
so and I'm grateful for it. Because to be honest, we had to travel 34 hours to even get to Cape Town before the race even started. And this was November, so it's fall, it's starting to be flu and cold season. Everyone at school and at work was already sick in our hometown before we left. So my immune system was challenged before this race even started. But I will kick you guys off here with race number 1 in Cape Town, South Africa. And there was a lot of flexibility as a racer going into something like this. You just knew that there were going to be a change of plans, but we didn't quite expect the plans to change before the race had even started. So originally, this race was designed to be Antarctica number 1, right? You'd want to run the hardest course first on fresh legs. But it was a nice day in Antarctica. It was 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And so while we were planning to run, maybe with, sunglasses instead of goggles and full gear in this 20-degree beautiful day, unfortunately, it also meant that the runway was starting to melt. And so they couldn't safely get the plane in and out of Antarctica. And so what they did was last minute, the night before, they emailed all of us and said, we're going to flip-flop the 2 races. You guys are going to run Cape Town 7 a.m. that morning, and then immediately after, you're going to change, pack your bags. We're flying to Antarctica. We're going to run at midnight. And so that shift in the plan was great for Cape Town. I got to run with my family. It was a beautiful day. I had fresh legs. It was so much fun. But then very quickly, the soreness starts to set in after the first race, and you're immediately on a 6-hour flight down to Antarctica. So race 2 also was very, very interesting. So if you remember the beginning of the video, I am a California girl, and in October, when I was training and testing out all of my gear, it was still 80 degrees here. And so the best I could do was like maybe put on one layer and run down the street and make sure it kind of fit. but I really had never run in conditions like this. And so I was way outside of my comfort zone. Just trying to do as much research, talk to other racers, people who had run in these conditions to kind of gauge what to expect. But once we landed, it felt like I had landed on the moon. It's almost indescribable how different of a terrain and climate it was. And then having to run 26 miles in these conditions was insane. So, backing up just a little bit, this special plane that we had to take to land on the ice in Antarctica, for whatever reason, and there could be many, they did not have a lot of water on the plane. So if you imagine all of us, racers, we just finished Cape Town, we're going through the airport. When you go through security, you have to empty out all of your water bottles, which we all did. And then you get on the plane and expect to fill them back up. But that just was not the case. And so by the time we landed in Antarctica, they didn't have any of the aid stations set up. It was actually even too cold to have water out on the race course because it was so cold it would have frozen. So we started that race very undernourished and underhydrated, and having been on the plane and the soreness already setting in. So I'm trying to set the scene because if you read that ESPN article, it does refer to this race as like running in hell or something like that. It was very difficult terrain. It was -20. The wind was at your face to the point where you had to lean so far forward to even get forward momentum and make progress. And so I don't even know if I would call this running. It was more like shuffling, which took 6 hours, a lot of extra hours for us to finish this one. But it was amazing. It was amazing to go there. It was one of my dreams to go to Antarctica, and I'm grateful that I was able to do it. Um, the train ended up being one of the trickiest parts of the race. Obviously, we expected it to be cold, and it was very windy. But the terrain was, you can kind of almost imagine like the moon. It was like running in wet sand that had then frozen, and there was a layer of blue ice underneath it. So if you imagine running in wet sand, all of your ligaments and tendons and ankles and knees have to work so hard for each step. And then if you misstep, there's a layer of blue ice, which takes you, right down to the ground, which happened to me. So there were more than a few racers that got injured or had pre-existing injuries come about for this race, and some had to pull out completely. On top of that, there is I had no exposed skin, and all of my electronics died in the first half an hour. I couldn't really talk to any racers because we're covered, from head to toe, and there was nothing to look at. There was this beautiful mountain range, but that was pretty much it. And so it was a very long, lonely, hard 6+ hours of running before we were boarding the plane, headed back to Cape Town to get to race number 3.
So when Natalia and I sat down to share this entire story and our recommendations, we kind of went through and we said, let's do a study and then let's talk about the race. And because too many studies all at once, maybe a little information overload. So we're gonna kind of jive with some story and some science. And so I'm gonna take the opportunity and share another really important study before she gets into the next one. And it has to do with runners again. And this is kind of the cold and the flu. And I'm just going to tell you exactly what is relevant. And again, I encourage all of you to look at the studies. They have all of these studies, and it's impressive the amount of research on the effectiveness of these. And so this one was the Austin Livestrong Marathon. It was 2 marathons in 24 hours, and the open window, remember, is that moment of the immune system is very, very vulnerable. It directly ties into this study. So there was 182 men and women who ran this Austin Livestrong Marathon. It was in 2011. And for 28 days following the race, the runners took 250 milligrams daily of beta glucans or placebo. And basically the key findings is the participants taking the form of beta glucan reported a 37% reduction. in the number of cold and flu and symptomatic days compared to the placebo. I mean, you can't argue with this. You took the beta glucan or you didn't. You got sick or you didn't. Specifically, the placebo group reported an average of 5.8 days of health problems after, whereas the beta glucans only reported 3.5 days. The proof is right here with what it is doing for endurance athletes. Whether you're running a marathon or it's a CrossFit or a High Rocks or you're a weekend warrior, there is a mechanism of how these magic molecules balance your immune system, support you in this open window, and prevent you from getting sick. And that is really the juice of all of these slides. It's it is something that if you are an endurance runner or you do any form of exercise and you're ramping up your endurance and you have a pre-existing condition, or if you just want to support it, getting into the right dose and when you take this, to Natalia and I and to everybody in the scientific team, seems like an absolute no-brainer. And then the studies that I'm going to continue to share obviously amplify this claim. Why don't you get into Australia?
Yeah, that was a good day. Australia was a good day. So we go from -20 in Antarctica, and it was such a gift to board our long-term plane where we felt like we had a home, right? We could like leave our bags and kind of our stuff in our one seat that we would be in for the rest of the trip. And then we had this long flight to Perth, Australia. So we were greeted on the plane with water and food and a place to close our eyes. And then by the time we woke up in Perth, Australia, it was like it just felt like a gift. It was sunny Australia with the locals all working the race and cheering us on every lap. So it was 100 degrees. It was very hot, but it was awesome. And the race crew did such an incredible job just trying to keep us cool throughout this entire race. So every stop it was, salt pill, electrolytes, and they doused us with water. I, had ice that I would carry on me. And I really remember this race as just being so much fun. Ryan had made me a playlist for every single one of the races, and this was the 80s mix. So I was just running waterfront on my own pace, listening to my 80s mix, chatting with the locals. It was really just a fun day. And when I finished this race, I actually went straight to my bag, and the first thing I did was fill up my bottle of Immune Ready. And it was something I'd been looking forward to for a couple hours of the run. Like, I can't wait to have that when I'm done. So, yeah, this first Australia was a great day. Number 3 was great.
Yeah.
That's you, love.
Yes. You haven't really talked about it. I don't know if you're going to talk about it later, but do you want to explain a little bit about your ankle now, or would you like to do this later?
It'll be the next slide.
Okay.
You teased it
So
out.
we did this on purpose. So here's another really interesting study, and this was shared with me, and I'll keep this one direct. And it has to do with the strongest athletes in the world. Yes, it is ping pong players. So this is a 2022 study by Wang et al. Investigated the effects of 4 weeks, a month of daily supplementation with 2 grams of beta glucans on 29 professional table tennis athletes. So you just bear with me on this. The research observed that the experimental group experienced significant improvements in muscle strength, specifically in grip, in the left tricep strength, which was accompanied by an increase in upper limb muscle mass. In addition, they had enhanced aerobic endurance, showing significant gains in VO2 max and a 1-minute double rocking jump performance. Let me explain this. If you don't know what a double rocking jump, that's just kind of like this. It's not a squat jump. It's just how fast you can do this. And these were metrics that were used to show that professional table tennis players taking it or not taking it. And to see a direct correlation in the ability of the volume of oxygen, the ability of the fast twitch muscle fibers to be able to perform more double rocking jumps than the others, as well as muscle strength. This is just scratching the surface in what many of us believe to be an incredible library of research that could show up showing how important not only is for immunity, but for muscle strength and performance. And I'm cherry picking all of these great research and sharing them in slides. But what you're going to see with the next one is, yes, it is improving respiratory function, reducing colds and viruses. But now we're starting to see things in performance, in energy, and yes, even in longevity. And there's some really exciting slides coming up about the effectiveness of these magic molecules on other aspects. So wanted to show that to you, but why don't you talk about one of your favorites?
He's joking. This one was not one of my favorites. It really is like this whole 7 days. It felt like every race was like a chapter in the book. They were also different, and you kind of showed up every day knowing that, your overall goal was to finish, but you weren't sure exactly how the day was going to play out because there's so much you just don't have control over. So don't let this photo fool you. It was actually a very long, hard day for me. Um, I had, after the Australia race, on the plane overnight, I had started to swell quite a bit. And so by the time I woke up when we landed in Abu Dhabi, I had a swollen Achilles and swollen tendons on my left ankle, and very little range of motion. I couldn't flex or point my foot on my left side. And so as I'm like waking up and sort of evaluating, everyone's changing and, getting ready for the day, I have this like, oh no, I think I might be in trouble moment of like, I'm not sure how this day is going to go. And because it's the middle of the race, and my goal, my personal goal was to finish every single race. It wasn't really a time goal for me, but I wanted to cross every single finish line. And so race 4 is really the make it or break it, because if you have a serious injury in race 4 that takes you out, something even where it takes you to the hospital, like you're not going to finish all the races. And so because it was race 4, I made the very difficult decision. I checked my ego at the door and I trusted my intuition, and I decided to walk probably around 20 miles of the 26 miles of this race, maybe more. And it was equally painful to walk on this injury as it was to run. And so I knew that would put me on my feet longer. It would be a longer, very lonely day, but I was going to have less impact. I just needed to kind of evaluate how serious the Achilles portion was. Um, and so crossing the finish line was definitely meaningful. I have some videos where, there were some tears, moments of a lot of discomfort. But I think this just comes with the territory of overuse, um, for a race like this. So number 4.
Segue for inflammation. What that was pure coincidence. So I saw pictures. It was extremely inflamed. They called them cankles. It was her ankles were very, very inflamed. And guess what? That's the immune system. Some people don't know that, but there are things called pro-inflammatory cytokines, and inflammation is your body's natural productive mechanism to protect yourself. Inflammation is good. When it starts to become prolonged, that's when it's bad. If it starts to become cellular in your body, that's when inflammation can turn into inflammaging. That's a whole nother webinar, but beta glucans can obviously help with that as well. So I just wanted to talk about this study regarding inflammation. And so this was in 2020, it was the Zabriskie study that investigated whether 13 days of 250 milligrams of the Baker's yeast beta glucan could mitigate exercise-induced muscle damage and systemic inflammation following physical stress in a hot and humid environment. Do you know about hot and humid environments and inflammation, Tal? So they conducted this randomized double-blind crossover trial with 31 healthy, active men and women who performed a strenuous treadmill test at 55% of their peak aerobic capacity in temperatures averaging 99 degrees. So they basically stressed the hell out of them at 55% of their peak aerobic capacity. And for those that know that, that's what we call zone 2. We call that zone 2 exercise, which is basically between 50 to 60% of your max heart rate. So they were at zone 2 in 99-degree weather. And it concluded that the baker's yeast, the exact ones that are used here, the supplements invoked favorable changes in cytokine markers. These are these pro-inflammatory cytokines. We call these interleukins or interferons. And it may facilitate a faster transition phase from acute inflammation to the repair phase. So you weren't an experiment. She was taking these. You were inflamed. We don't know what would happen if you didn't take them. We could only speculate. But this is very relevant, promising research showing the immune system and how it correlates with inflammation for not only athletes, endurance athletes, for anyone dealing with inflammation. So I wanted to throw that in there as well. And I thought it was the appropriate time to put it right after Abu Dhabi.
Yes, and now we get to talk about my favorite race, race number 5. And this is the part where I get to thank all of you. I know that there were so many people following the race that were sending your prayers, your good vibes, your energy. And I'm so grateful because you were all part of the journey with me. And I woke up the morning we landed in Europe and it was a miracle. My swelling had gone down, the range of motion had gotten better, the Achilles I realized was not as serious as I had thought the day before, and most importantly, I could bear weight on my left foot. And so I took advantage. I was so excited to land in Portugal and run, and it was my chance to run, and I wanted to run well. And this photo is one of my favorite moments of the whole race. So Portugal welcomed us, this little tiny town called Altura, Portugal. They welcomed us with the mayor of the town. There was a local shop owner who owned a gelato slash cafe slash restaurant, and he just shut down the whole thing for our group and served us the most incredible food that I had probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 servings of at least. Um, they had music for us, but the most amazing part of this race was a class of school children also came out to cheer us on. And that's what you'll see in this photo. They all stuck out their hands and cheered at the top of their lungs every time we ran by. You would have thought we were like celebrities, movie stars, rock stars. The energy of this race was something I will never forget. So it was awesome to run. You could not wipe the smile off my face for all 26 miles. And then the town just really made it so special for us. And then race 6. So just like I said, every race is totally different. I mean, just the day before I was living my best life in Portugal and then flying to Cartagena, I really was tested in this race, even more so than Antarctica. Um, this race would test me physically, emotionally, and mentally. And I had to dig deep into places that I didn't even know I had, which of course is a gift. But when we landed in Cartagena at midnight, we were starting at 3 a.m. for this race. And we were trying to run really as much as possible before the sun came up because it was already so humid when we started this race. We were drenched at the start line, we were all drenched. But unfortunately, my body was so broken down by marathon 6. And when I say my body, I mean the blisters on my feet because they had been keeping us wet through all the hot races. I probably had more than a dozen blisters and the swelling on my feet. Not only that, but the Achilles and tendon issue from Abu Dhabi came back with a vengeance. And so it was already, I knew, going to be a very tough day. Each step for me was excruciating pain for this race. And every half mile or so, I would have to stop because the tendon on the front of my shin would go into complete spasm. So I'd have to stop completely and like press on it, get it to kind of calm down a little bit, and then keep running. And these 2 ladies that you see with me on this screen, we are bonded and best friends for life. That's Lisa and Jenny. on the right in the middle there. They had the option when my spasms were happening to leave me behind and continue at their own pace, and they did not. This really was a team effort. We were all struggling with, different, ailments, injuries, just having a hard day anyways. But running with the three of us together for all 26 miles and coming in through that finish line was an incredibly emotional finish and also just so memorable because the special thing about this race is the people that were around you. There's many times that you're having a very tough day, tough moment, tough mile, and all you have to do is look to your left and look to your right, and you're just immediately inspired by these incredible people that came to do this race for their own reasons, to support somebody, to support themselves, to find the place inside of them, rediscover their edges, whatever it was. And the spirit of the group together, it's just made you feel like the most impossible thing was possible. So Cartagena tested me in ways I'd never been tested before, but yeah, the tears at the finish line were real.
So now we are really into the open window, and by now you're probably sick of hearing the open window, but that is on purpose because I want everyone of you that's listening to really truly understand this concept. Um, it is a normal immune suppression that occurs with endurance. And you can either support your body in this and balance your immune system, and prevent illness and inflammation, or you can ignore it and neglect it and move down a cascade of illness. And the choice is simple for me. This study makes it even stronger. This was cyclists. So this was in 2010. It was Kakanis et al., which is his team, and they basically validated this open window theory of immune susceptibility. And so they followed and monitored 10 elite male cyclists for 24 hours following a grueling 2-hour cycling session. And so while they saw and they were checking blood, they saw the natural lymphocytes go up, which is, again, your innate immune system boosting. They saw that significant drop baseline after 2 hours where the natural killer cells remain suppressed for up to 8 hours. And that means that they are very vulnerable in that time. And so this study found that despite like a 5-fold increase in the circulating innate immune system neutrophils, the actual like bacterial fighting ability was significantly impaired 2 hours through this 24-hour period. And so what does this mean? This means essentially that endurance exercise causes a prolonged period of lower immune cell numbers. And this leaves people vulnerable. And this also presents an opportunity to support your immune system during this time. And again, Natalia is like having multiple open windows, this compounding effect of not only inflammation, but the vulnerability of her immune system that she cannot catch up. And so just want to share that. I know you want to talk about this, and then I'll get into the juicy stuff.
Yes, so race 7, the last one, the last day. So what's supposed to be a final victory lap with friends and family, that's what we all called it, was our final victory lap. It almost didn't happen for me. By this time in the race, everyone was struggling with something. The night before, my plane mate was up coughing all night, and I just had such bad swelling and throbbing. I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even put my hyper ice boots on anymore because the blisters and the swelling on my feet were so bad. I was just so injured after Cartagena, that I knew I was in bad shape. And so about 4 a.m. I walked out into the hallway, and our last night was not on a plane. We were in a hotel room the last night, so there was a hallway. And I called Ryan and I said, I have to run in 2 hours. It's the last race. I can't bear weight on my left foot, like not at all. I was hopping in order to get to the hallway. And he said to me, Tal, You've already run 6 marathons. We are so proud of you. It's okay if you just don't run the last one. And, I have tears streaming down my face. And I said, I have to finish. I have to find a way. It's just not the answer I want to hear. And so I went into this very clear-headed moment of like, find a way, find a way. And so the first thing I did was actually email our race director, David Kelly, and I said, can I finish, like, is it legal if I finish the race on crutches or if I got a walking boot? And that was like where my mind went. Like, can I finish it on one leg? Like, how do I get there? And he didn't email me back. And so now I only have an hour before I have to show up at the start line. And when I got back to the room with my roommate, her and her husband, who was also at the hotel, saw the condition that I was in, that I couldn't bear weight on my left foot. And thankfully for him, he's a doctor. He's also an athletic trainer, and so he basically made a walking boot for me with a huge lidocaine patch and tons of tape. And then I pulled up my compression sock and put on my Achilles sleeve. And by this time in the race, there was no chance I was fitting into my normal shoes. So I had one pair of size up shoes, and I just kind of stuffed my feet in there. Everything was taped as much as it possibly could be. And then my goal, my mindset was just start running. If I start running and I don't stop until I get to the finish line, that's my plan. And, getting there and seeing my family was just so awesome. It was this big lift in energy because everyone's family's there for the finish. But our daughter, who you'll see in the middle there, Sienna, she's 16 years old. She ran 23 of the 26 miles with me. And that's by far the longest she's ever run. And it was just this incredible role reversal that took place during this race, one that I'll never forget, where she could see how much pain I was in. And she was my coach that day. You're doing so good. You're almost there. It's going to be okay. Mind you, she's probably in just as much pain running 23 miles as a teenager for the first time ever. But it was really a special way to end the whole thing as a family. And then at the finish line, of course, I did cross and finish, and my entire extended family was there. We actually celebrated my mom's 70th birthday and my sister's 40th birthday, and we were in Miami. Like, we had done the big thing. But in the process, I learned so much about myself, how to move beyond limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome, how to manage and overcome extreme pain, really how to trust my intuition and be flexible with expectations. And then I really felt like I had redefined my edges, which is one of the reasons that I went there to discover that about myself. So all 7 races taught me something, setbacks and all. But I crossed that finish line injured, and I mean like unable to walk um, as soon as I crossed the finish line. But I was healthy. My immune system was healthy and strong and would continue to be so. I mean, days, weeks, months, even after the race. Huge victory.
Well, I just want to finish the slides that share the effectiveness of this. This is what I learned as I was preparing for this. And for the essence of time, I'm just going to tell you like the key point of each one of these, and then we'll get into what I believe might be one of the best protocols for anyone. I didn't realize that there's studies that have beta glucan supporting every living creature, from shrimp. That's why you got a little kid holding shrimp, to horses and everything in between. I didn't really realize that, this key mechanism is across the world with almost all species. And so it's well beyond just fighting off colds and flu. There's now research saying that it helps with anti-infection immunity, cancer, wound healing, allergies, lipoprotein, high cholesterol, obviously inflammation, stress, and anxiety. Almost every single system or potential imbalance in the body can be mitigated or supported with the power of these beta glucan. And then again, everyday athletes. I don't know how many of you, after Natalia's story, are going to go sign up for the Great Road Race. I doubt many, but this is for every single person that might be kind of nodding their head in awe, like all of us. But it's not just for her, and it's not for her friends. It's not for all the kind of CrossFitters. Again, it is for everybody, regardless of age, obviously dose dependent, gender. Um, there's studies in here showing that, this one was just 250 milligrams of this baker's yeast beta glucan could mitigate the immune suppression caused by strenuous exercise in a population of average fitness individuals. So I wanted to throw it in there and say, hey, this isn't about, the biohackers or the people that are doing these very, very hard challenges. This is for all of us. And by all of us, I mean me taking her beta glucans when she's training as well. So sick days, this one is a really good study, and she was taking the beta glucan capsules, and those are broken down into different dosages. And we'll talk about that later. But her drink, the drink that she actually loved, that she used, is part hydration, part recovery, that had beta glucans in here. The researchers in this study concluded that the immunomodulating properties of these beta glucan are effective even when they're incorporated in a food matrix and subjected to pasteurization, which is what they do to put these in these sachets so they're ready to drink. And so it's a practical way for athletes to reduce the health toll and training interruptions associated with intense exercise, just drinking these small amounts. So different ways to get your beta glucan is what this essentially says. And energy. You didn't really get into the energy. I couldn't believe how much energy she had. And I alluded to it about 6 slides ago, but this one in 2020 by Vika, who I learned the leading researcher in the world on these beta glucans, evaluated the dose-dependent effects of these beta glucans on chronic fatigued mice. And yes, they do studies on mice, and they directly correlate eventually with human trials. And I just want to be really quick with this one. But they basically showed that by giving them specific dosages of beta glucan, they put the mice on this rotarod test to measure endurance and motor coordination. So they're basically like treadmills for mice. And they roll like this, and they have to stay on there. And it basically shows the endurance and the capacity of these mice. And they would separate them in placebo and the ones that have the beta glucan. And the ones that supplemented with 200 micrograms, again, this is for mice, stayed on that rod for approximately 62 seconds, which was a 244% increase in endurance time compared to the ones that did not have it. So again, we could speculate, but there is something going on with the beta glucan that has to do with cellular mechanisms, mitochondria, and energy. And Natalia, you said I never got tired on this. I still debate this. I still challenge you on it. But she said she never got tired. We don't know. You didn't do this when you weren't taking beta glucan. So I mean, you only have your testimonial, but a lot of people that are on these beta glucan also share the same testimonial that it produces energy. Super interesting and relevant. And then this one is super exciting, and then I'll get to the end. In my practice, I use many different labs. I do functional medicine, from blood to stool to adrenals to saliva, and there's these new studies that actually quantify your biological age versus your chronological age. So your biological age is different than your actual age. Is really the cellular aging. So if you run one of these tests, they're called True Diagnostic is the name of the lab. They will show you with research your real age versus your chronological age, and it's very impactful. It's actually very eye-opening for a lot of people. But what they're now doing, they're doing studies with this and showing what beta glucan can do for longevity and aging. And I know that they just had a webinar, and it's extremely exciting what is coming out. But one of the biggest surprise markers that they flagged was that you could regulate what's called gene expression. And I won't geek out other than it's changing how our DNA works. I can't explain the mechanism yet. I will certainly dive into it as I start to learn more about beta glucan, but extremely promising that these magic molecules, obviously immune, energy, fatigue, but now are very promising in its ability for longevity. And so I just wanted to bring up that. They're backed by thousands of studies. You can just go to PubMed and look at it. So I encourage all of you to go in there and look it up. And then again, there's almost every single condition or imbalance has been proven or shown or supported with beta glucans. So in summary, here's what I've learned from Natalia's great adventure. And I just wanted to share with you, this is what we're going to do. This is what I'm recommending to my patients, and what I certainly recommend to all of you if you're interested in taking advantage of these beta glucan is, again, remember, you can't supplement a shitty diet and a bad lifestyle, really. So you always make sure you take care of that. Quality sleep, whole foods diet, get rid of the processed food, get rid of the sugar. Zone 2 activity is a really promising form of activity that you could do that kind of boosts your health and immune system. Stress management, we are very clear that cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline suppress immunity. So we all have forms of stress, managing that. But now we get into the heavy hitter of this entire webinar, which is, in addition to the foundations, depending on you and what your goal is and your gender and your age and the reason, anywhere from 200 to 1,000 milligrams of Better Way Health 85 beta glucans. This is the 1316. I highly recommend everyone try this. And it is across the board beneficial, no doubt about it. We saw it. I saw it firsthand. Natalia saw it. I want you to talk to them about what would have happened, or what you saw versus you taking it and maybe the people that did not.
Yeah, so before we get into that, I know you're not sure if I really wasn't, had great energy throughout the race, and you weren't with me on the race, so you're gonna have to take my word for it. But you were with me the next week after I finished the race. And so I think everybody expected me to be like asleep in my hotel room for 3 days when I finished, but I went out with everybody. I mean, I couldn't walk. You had to give me a piggyback ride. But I was there with family and friends celebrating the big birthdays and hanging out with everybody in the holidays when we got home. And so I think what you would normally see is like a tank in energy just trying to catch up, but it continued on. And so 7 epic days later, my immune system, it is true, it's all true. It was healthy and strong, and I can say that in contrast to a lot of the people I was racing with and spending, living in very close quarters with. It's a true testament to the product, because not only did I just avoid illness, but I was around it in close quarters, and I still I didn't pick up any flus or bugs. And most of my friends, my race mates, did. As soon as they got home, either they had it already on the last couple days, or as soon as they got home, they got colds, flus, stomach bugs, and were laid out for about a week. And so it was pretty awesome to just sort of enjoy, with a healthy, strong immune system, having finished this race and let it all sink in, even though, I was in a walking boot and had to take a wheelchair from the last plane ride to our Uber back in San Francisco. But those things heal. So I made it through the last finish line, and that was the best part.
My name is Natalia Lazarus, and I just finished the Great World Race, 7 marathons in 7 days on all 7 continents. And it's been a week of extremes: extreme heat, extreme cold, -20 in Antarctica, running 26.2 miles, and then getting on a plane to sleep at night really tests your immune system. So today, after finishing, my legs are sore, and I can't wait to not run for a while. But what has stayed strong the whole time is my immune system. And that's because I've been drinking Immune Ready consistently all through training and during this race. And I'm just so grateful to have finished 183.4 miles from all over the world. So just want to say a huge thank you to Immune Ready for making this possible and getting me all the way to the finish line.
Yeah,
You were
that's
you were on cloud nine.
I was so happy to be finished. Yeah, it was very, very fun and very that was true finish line testimonial right there.
Wow. That I'm speechless from everything that y'all just shared, and I know everyone else is. Uh First off, everyone just give it up for Dr. Ryan and Natalia in the chat. I mean, that was incredible. Dr. Ryan, just the information, the deep dive on just the impact while going through Natalia's whole story, just piece by piece, was not only just impactful, but just so encouraging. Natalia, what you went through made me just want to run through a brick wall. That was like, that was awesome. So thank you so much. I know that just blessed everyone who was on this call, just being able to just see your journey, even outside of beta glucan, what you went through, and then just to know uh, how you dealt with it with the beta glucan, with the full regimen, Dr. Ryan, that you helped piece together for this, during this, after all the things that were overcome is awesome. So I just cannot thank you enough. And really, all I want to do is just add a couple things on to the beta glucan for those who may have not been familiar, just to dive in for a moment. The research, of course, a lot of what Dr. Ryan was pulling from is our research, and this is what separates us from other companies. It's the actual beta glucan that's in that bottle, that's in those drink sachets. It's been evaluated in over 26 published research studies. This is massive. The proof is there. Now, not only that, but this one is one of my favorites. According to a study that was published in the Journal of the American Nutraceutical Association, Better Way Health beta glucan is the most relevant immune modulator. And this was stated after researchers had tested it against other popular immune system products like vitamin C, echinacea, and astragalus. Now, when it comes to these results that Dr. Ryan was talking about in the presentation, research is actually showing that beta glucan can quite literally double your immune function in just 3 days. So just give me a few more minutes just to share this exclusive offer that we have for you here today. And of course, we're going to be going right into our live Q&A with AJ because I know that there's going to be questions around dosing, contraindications, specific protocols for some of you, and rightfully so. But let's save those great questions for our special guest. Now, supplementation is necessary. Just like Dr. Ryan was saying earlier, this is not something, say, like selenium, right? Where if you eat a couple of Brazil nuts during the day, then you're actually getting in a decent intake of selenium. No, this is something where you must supplement. And even Dr. Václav Vedvika, who actually is like the godfather of some of the research here, some of the research we've been talking about, he even says, even though beta glucan can be found in some common foods like oats, mushrooms, certain grains, our body has a limited ability to actually absorb glucan directly from food. So beta glucan in food is actually locked up tight within the structure of cell walls, and our digestive system just does not have the time or the tools to break it down and absorb it effectively. This is why supplementation is needed. Now, sourcing, vitally important, right? When it comes to sourcing types of beta glucan, the University of Louisville actually conducted a comparison study and evaluated over 200 different beta glucans from a variety of sources like yeast, mushrooms, oats, and barley, and discovered that Better Way Health's yeast-derived beta glucan outperformed all others in every test. So if you're looking for the best immune support, this is it. Validated by the very researchers and the very studies that are actually setting the gold standard in this field. And of course, as all of you know who are even taking the beta glucan now, purity is everything. This is truly what sets us apart. We have an 85% purity standard. Every batch is tested, and if it does not meet the standard, the product will not be sold. This is the highest possible purity grade sold on the market today. Now, this is my personal favorite thing is it's one ingredient, one molecule, and that's it, right? There's no fluff here. It's no proprietary mystery blend. You're not sure what's in it, right? No artificial colors, non-GMO. And although it is from the cell wall of baker's yeast, it is finely extracted to where it's just that molecule, right? So there's no yeast proteins. There are no allergens. It is just the beta glucan molecule in its highest purity. Now, for those of you who know us, we've been around since 1999. We love supporting our customers. We have 10,000 verified 5-star reviews from folks just like yourselves who we get to talk to on the phone, which is a rarity nowadays. We love emailing back and forth with you, answering questions, talking to you, getting to know you, being a part of your individual stories. That is what really drives us. Now, when it does come to purchasing and even these exclusive offers that we want to give you guys, 60-day money back. Y'all know how we operate here. We believe in it. We love it. We want you to feel the same. And we give you 60 days, right? 60 days money back guarantee, no hassle with that whatsoever. Now, what Dr. Lazarus was talking about is the Lazarus protocol. So this is actually something we have never done before. We are offering you exclusively on this webinar the Dr. Lazarus protocol. 1 bottle of the beta glucan 500, 1 bottle of the vitamin D3, and 6 bags of our immune ready. And this is going to be 2 bags of each of those flavors, the cherry limeade, the tiger's blood, which is watermelon coconut, the peach mango. So if you're an athlete, especially a runner, or doing any kind of high intensity exercise, this is for you. The Lazarus protocol is for you. Now, here are the savings. The retail price for this bundle that you see on your screen, the retail price is $409.60, over $400. But only here and for the next 48 hours, we are offering this entire bundle for $199.95, over 50% off and over $200 worth of savings. And the best part is you can subscribe to this. This means you can lock in this bundle on subscription. You just lock in this pricing and you keep it. So you get the lifetime discount. You get flexible deliveries, expert protocols, which is this is one of them, right? You get the welcome call from our team if you're new to us. And of course, you have our customer support. You're going to get free shipping. And just like this exclusive training you got tonight, we're going to have more exclusive trainings. So this is a wonderful time to stock up, to buy, and to get on that subscription because you're locking in this price. And of course, we can change dates around. We can change anything you want, right? We can change flavors. You're going to have plenty of time to find out what flavor you love the most. Maybe you love them all the most. You have plenty of time to call our team. We can really fit the subscription to your needs, work it how you want it to be worked. Of course, you can cancel whenever you want. You know, we don't lock y'all into anything you don't want to be locked into. Now, outside of the bundle, I know that a lot of you who are on this call are already customers and you're actually already using some of these products that are on Dr. Lazarus's protocol. But for any products you have yet to try or subscribe to, just for you, if you're not going to do the bundle here, we're going to offer a 30% discount on everything else for the next 48 hours. So if you want this 30% discount on any other products that you're not using for the next 48 hours, use the code RACE at checkout. And you'll see it there, have a QR code. We've got the link there. And of course, that discount code for you. Now, while you're deciding which products to add to your cart, let me introduce to you our very special guest, AJ Lanigan, our formulator, the man behind the purity of our beta glucan. AJ, my friend, you are good to join on in for this Q&A. And if people want to start dropping some questions in for us.
Natalia, I just want to say back in the 1960s, when I was playing football, I thought I was tough running in full cleats and full football pads 5 miles in under an hour. I am so embarrassed to even say that out loud after listening to what you've just been through, and I can't imagine anybody that I know would have survived it. So congratulations, any and all accolades that you have gotten or will get, well deserved. Dr. Lazarus, you got to be a great champ to be in this camp, and you got to have coaches, you got to have players, you got to have support, and looks like you fill a lot of those slots. So want to give you a special thanks as well.
Thanks from both of us.
Well,
I've heard great things, AJ, and it's nice to finally hear your voice, and I'm excited to learn more.
Normally I would have fallen asleep an hour ago, but I sat right here and got everything that you guys laid out was, just, not only the event and what you went through, but a superlative process tonight. A lot of people that I do these things with, you would think it's their first time, but you guys really laid it out there in a professional fashion, and I for one, very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Well, we've got some questions already coming in, y'all, so we can kick it off. So if anyone has questions for Dr. Ryan or Natalia or AJ, feel free to drop them in. The first one is for you, Dr. Ryan. Someone asked, what did you use for Natalia's adrenal support during this?
Yeah, great question. Simple. Panax ginseng, rhodiola, ashwagandha, and cordyceps. So I have my own products, and this is what I put in my adrenal support. And so I dosed her with those 4 botanicals and extracts, BID. And so those are the 4. There's many different adaptogens, but those were the 4 that I really focused on for her.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Ryan. AJ, got one for you too. It says, can we take too much beta glucan? Should we separate the beta glucan 500 from the immune ready drinks, or is it okay to take all together or at least close together?
There is no amount of this ingredient that is known that you could consume that would do you harm. People have asked, well, what if I snort it? Well, it's just going to give you a heck of a booger. How could you hurt somebody? Hit them in the eye with a bottle. Walk up under a pallet while it's being loaded under a truck. That could hurt you. But as far as this compound, it is, I don't want to use the term inert, but its chemical formula does not allow it to harm you, because again, we've gotten rid of the amount of proteins, we've gotten rid of lipids and so forth, where you can have oxidation and whatnot that could upset the stomach, could create some hypersensitivity. Some people do have issues with whole yeast or poorly processed beta glucans that still contain fair amounts of yeast. One of the things that we did early on was discover that we get rid of these things, we eliminate all the possible problems, and we also allow it to be taken up more intentionally, and its activity, its biological and immunological activity, is significantly different than many other compounds, that not only other yeast source compounds, but mushrooms, the grains, there's a glucan that comes from euglena, bacterial forms. All of these have different structures, and even though they're highly purified, it's that unique molecular structure, the unique molecular weight, the design of the molecule, the side chains, the 1,6 side chains, the length of those side chains, all of these things are critically important. And testing hundreds and thousands of times over and over and over again, not just as a standalone, but next to other compounds that are well established as far as knowing that they help the immune system. Some of these things you've got to take 60, 70, as much as 100 plus times the dose to get the same immunological activity from one of our small capsules. So safety, the window is so huge, it's hard to even describe it. So there is a level of dose where you gain no additional benefit. Now, if you'd asked me, 20, 25 years ago, I would have said you can take more product, I've got a daughter in college. At the time, I had a Ukrainian girlfriend and an ex-wife. So I would appreciate the money, but it would not give you any greater benefit. So follow the instructions on the bottle. There is a dose to weight ratio. I was on a Zoom with a physician earlier today talking about prostate cancer, and he says, "Well, I really appreciate studies, but the most important thing to me is that it's easy and there's no confusion with the billing. Then, if you have studies, oh, okay, that's all right too." But he'd already done his homework. But as we all know, if you don't get patient compliance, no matter how good your product, no matter how good your protocol, if you're not getting compliance, you're not going to get the results.
That's great. Thank you, AJ. Natalia, I've got one for you as well. Somebody would like to know how you took the beta glucan with your protocol, just kind of the specifics with, the capsules, and then of course, maybe when the drinks and how you went about it.
Yeah, great question. I took them on an empty stomach. I took both capsules at the same time. So wake up, have a cup of coffee, and then as soon as I'm, shifting into making, my creatine mix, leaving for a workout, the beta glucans are the only supplement that goes in, the first one that hits my body. And then you post workout is when I really enjoyed the immune ready drinks. It was kind of like my reward after finishing a long workout. It's hydrated, tastes amazing, and it just sort of always got me through the last couple of miles.
That's awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Natalia. I saw someone else was asking about what's in the drink. So, of course, our BWH 85 in there, as well as vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, also there for immune support. We have an inulin prebiotic by chicory root for the gut. And then, of course, magnesium, potassium, and sodium for the hydration blend. Now, based on what I'm saying, so that's kind of what's in each of the drinks. Of course, you have the different flavors. Natalia, what was your favorite flavor of the drink that people want to know?
Ah, the tiger's blood.
There we go.
It was always, and it's such a pretty color.
It is. I think I switch around a little bit. How about you, Dr. Wright? Did you have a favorite?
I love that one. We called it our peach snapple. Was that the tiger's blood or was that the
No,
other?
no,
That
no.
was
You're
the
talking
peach.
about peach
Yeah, the
mango.
peach mango. Yep.
So
Yeah.
peach mango was mine.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
our kids' friends would come over and we said, doesn't it taste like Snapple? And they go, "What's Snapple?" And I go, "Okay, well, go- for you do you remember those little clicky
Oh,
tops?" Anyways,
yes.
yeah. So peach was my favorite. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank y'all for sharing that. AJ, I do have another for you. Someone says, what dose of beta glucan for a cancer survivor trying to avoid reoccurrence?
Well, the bad thing about cancer is arguably 1 out of 2 men, 1 out of 3 women, if you live long enough, will have to face the challenge of cancer. If you have already had cancer, those statistics go even further against you. So certainly, you would want to use the product. Uh, I would start off with a 500 milligram. It is dosed based on body weight. So not knowing your body weight, I would say start on at least 500 milligrams once daily. Best if taken on an empty stomach, and wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes before you eat something. If you go ahead and have a sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich for breakfast, you might want to wait till about 30 minutes before lunch. Time of day is not critical. Again, uh, analyzing dose curves, when we gave a single dose, it took 72 hours for that dose to meet its peak. And then after about 2 weeks, you came back down to your base level. So you want to take an effective dose. When I say effective, effective for what you're going through. Well, again, we've got a product that is well purified, well categorized, and so that means it's standardized. Imagine, Doc, and you know this. if you're a diabetic and you happen to be using insulin and you're supposed to have 1 unit or 2 units, whatever, if you never know from vial to vial or dose to dose if they're the same, you could be in trouble. So standardization is key. When I was in pharmacy school, you couldn't just say, well, you just try some of this stuff, and if it doesn't work, try twice as much. No, the first thing you got to do is identify the stuff inside the stuff. Then you can measure it based on, different things, time, weight, and so forth. So the beautiful thing about our product is you can actually choose and you can regulate where you want your immune response to be based upon your dose to body weight. Obviously, if you're pushing a load like Natalia, you would benefit by the higher dose. I tell a person, look, if you're taking a low dose and next Monday you're going to have all your wisdom teeth removed, well, I would go on up to the higher dose for at least 3 or 4 days before, day of, and probably a week afterwards. One of my first professional customers, again, nearly 30 years ago, was a dentist. And I want to tell you, dentists do a lot of damage to your mouth. And he had been practicing for over 30 years, and he had people maybe who had had cancer, people that had other conditions. Their immune systems were wrecked. They would have problems with dry sockets. They would have problems with cavitations post surgery, all kinds of post operative problems, painkillers, antibiotics, which again, people like that many times have allergies to antibiotics. He substituted every person. He would take a bottle and he would get a Ziploc bag and put a certain number of capsules in that Ziploc bag and give them to the patient and say, now, I'll see you on Monday. And he said he started seeing a total elimination of these post-operative complications. And after 30 or 40 years, a clinician realizes, study or non, when something affects their patient population so tremendously.
Thank you so much, AJ. That was awesome. Very, very informative. Dr. Ryan had something else in for you as well. So what would you say is the biggest difference in preparing your wife for this race versus just preparing one of your patients, just in general?
Great question. Natalia is a great listener and very compliant. So luckily that was great. Our communication was great. I was just emotionally invested. When she made that call, well, there were a couple calls, and then there was some training snags we had along the way. I didn't want her to get significantly injured. And so I was trying to make every effort to say, you're good. We love you no matter what. You've come this far. You don't have to go farther. It was hard. It was hard to really support her because I was thinking about worst case scenario medically.
Right.
So to answer your question, she's great. I would lay it out and she would do it. There was no kickback. There was no arguing. She would come to my office and she would steal our inventory. That was really pissed us off. But other than that, that's the reason why we get along so great. I was just emotionally invested, but luckily we communicate great. And then I just wanted to make sure she wasn't like her injury on her foot and her ankle was pretty bad. And so just trying to tiptoe around, we love you, we support you, you're doing great, you can stop now. And so that's it in short. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. A reminder, guys, the offer is there in the chat. You can click that link. They're putting it in there for you. Of course, let us know if you have any questions about that as well. For Natalia, what would you say because I know you were doing the beta glucan before, during, after. Was there anything that, what would you say was like the most surprising benefit to you? I know you knew a lot about it right prior, but when you were actually going through all of those things while on the beta glucan, what would you say would be the most surprising thing to you?
Yeah, so I think from my very little understanding, I just sort of was taking it not to get sick at first, which is a very important part of
Yeah.
training. And what I didn't realize was like I just had so much energy throughout the day. And it wasn't that my training had changed or even that I had adapted to the training. It was just all of a sudden I had this like energy to sustain me in a different way. And, training aside for the race, like I think that's everyone's goal, especially if you've got kids and a busy life and all the things. You're just, you don't have time to take a nap at 3 p.m. every day. You've got to get through the whole day without, extra cups of coffee. And so I was really surprised by the energy. And Ryan alluded to this earlier. Throughout the race, I never remember being tired. And
Wow.
a lot of that is adrenaline, right? And the
Yep.
energy of the group and all of those things. But I just always had enough energy to finish the race. But like even in the in-between times, there was just always enough. And that even carried after the race. I was able to, spend time with my family that had traveled so far to be with me. And so it's going to be part of my protocol training or not for the rest of my life. I mean, I almost can't imagine stopping taking it at this point because
Yeah.
I don't want to be tired and sick.
That's awesome. No, that's a perfect answer. So thank you so much for that. I did want to address someone when it comes to that 85% purity standard of the beta glucan. That does not mean that there is 15% of impurity in it. So when you're looking at the beta glucan, it's 100% beta glucan that's in there. 85% or more is active beta glucan molecule. The other would just be inactive beta glucan molecule. So it's not that there's any impurities. There's not, like I said, some mystery proprietary blend of other ingredients just hanging around in there. It's all beta glucan. It's just you're talking about what part is active and making that difference, and that would be 85% or more. Um, AJ, would you like to elaborate on that anymore?
Yeah, when we purify, our whole thing is to get rid of the fats, the lipids, and the proteins. Uh, what's left are your complex carbohydrates. So there's more than one when we talk about the complex carbohydrates. Beta glucan happens to be the predominant complex carbohydrate in the total bundle. But then you've got things like glycogen, you've got some chitin, and some other minor amounts of other complex carbohydrates. So you're looking at a complex carbohydrate basket, where again, of that basket, we have a minimum of 85%. It could be 86, it could be 88, it could be 91. Uh, it's not like you take and you dig up some dirt and you raise the temperature to a couple of thousand degrees and pull the gold out. It's not that simple, because if you get it too terribly hot, you destroy the molecule. So our process is time tested. It's written up in patents. It's written up in different literature, different journals. But I will tell you, if you go try to make it at home, good luck. It's tough.
Yeah, doing the homebrew of beta glucan don't work so easy.
Yeah.
I think there's some companies out there who have tried it. So if AJ, straight to you again, real quick. This can be a two-parter to kind of, two birds, one stone. So it says that if one is taking an immunosuppressant drug for an autoimmune disease, can they still take beta glucan? And also, someone just asked, with autoimmune, can you take beta glucan? Would you like to kind of just summarize the autoimmune and immunosuppressant drug relation?
Yeah, that is probably one of the most common questions I've gotten over the couple of decades. Um, the window of safety, as I said earlier, is so huge, and there are no studies. Let me make this perfectly clear that there are no studies showing that it would be harmful if you were using one of these, maybe steroids, chemotherapy, other things to shut down or suppress the immune system. We've had patients with lupus and many other autoimmune disorders who have taken this product for now decades and have gotten healthier and healthier and healthier. For someone who has no experience, and if your physician has no experience, I would say start off slow. Start off with like 100 milligrams and stay on that dose for a while, and then up to 200 milligrams. There's been questions about pregnancy. Well, my daughter's will be 36 here February the 20th. I can verify that because I was standing there when she showed up. And she's got two beautiful children. She's never missed a day taking the product. But again, with pregnancy, hey, things can go sideways. Uh, you could be using a dozen different pharmaceutical drugs, and if something were to go sideways, it would be the food supplement that would be blamed and not all the other things. The last category would be someone who's undergoing a graft or a transplant. These in particular, I would tread lightly. I cannot recall anyone that has actually gotten a transplant while they were recovering that used the product. I've had, I don't know, maybe a handful or so of people who were transplant patients long ago. They're off the immune suppressing drugs, and they've been able to use the beta glucan without issue. All of these circumstances, though, I would say get with your healthcare professional. If you'd like me to have a conversation with them, I would be more than happy to do it. We really, really understand our what's called our MOA, our mechanism of action. And as long as the doctor understands the drugs that they're giving and the pathways that these drugs travel, they should be able to figure out if whether or not it would be safe. So I hope proceed with caution and then continue to monitor.
Thank you, AJ. That was perfect and summed up a lot and actually answered a lot of questions. I want to give a quick shout out to Tammy in the chat. Better Way Health customers are the best, and I was so happy that so many were on the call. Tammy's asking how my wife and baby are doing. They're doing great. Thank you for asking, Tammy. I'm sure we'll talk on the phone soon. Natalia, I've got another one for you. I want to know if you have run again since finishing the Great World Race, and if you would ever run the Great World Race again.
Oh, I love whoever asked these questions. Yes, I have run. I'm up to like 6 miles just running for fun and testing everything out. It's supposed to be 8 weeks off. I'm at like 6 right now. So I'm sneaking it in there when I probably shouldn't be. Um, so I would run the Great World Race again. Under certain circumstances. I'm not planning to, but I think never say never. It's really interesting because I have learned so much from the race. It's almost like I would love to put that knowledge to good use. I would do so many things differently, gear and otherwise. And so never say, maybe it'll be when my 16-year-old wants to do it with me. Who knows?
That's
So
awesome. That would
placeholder.
be awesome. Yes, round two for you. That would be incredible. Ryan, this actually goes to you. They want to know what was Natalia eating during her training when she was, running all of those miles? What was her diet kind of like?
Yeah. So most importantly is meeting or exceeding her caloric needs. Her metabolic rate was very, very high. There's times where she was running 20 plus. And so, we had calculated her calories and her macros. And this is what I do as a nutritionist. So we were eating way more protein than she usually is. I was aiming for her to get 0.8 per gram or 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And she found ways to do it with some protein shakes and some desserts and a little bit more protein than she's used to. And I'm a type 1 diabetic. I kind of introduced that. And so I live a kind of a low carb lifestyle. So do we, but carbs are important when you're training and doing endurance. And so we really spent a lot of time with like tubers, a lot of sweet potatoes, good quality fruits, really good quality fats. And so, I mean, if I had to really describe it, it would be like a paleo Mediterranean diet where she was consuming as much as she could through work and through kids, and a lot of snacks. But I would say the big thing was just trying to exceed, 2,500 calories and trying to hit that protein threshold.
Yeah.
And then, sticking to the really good carbs in or around the timing of the endurance as well. But great question. That's a whole nother level, and I love geeking out on that. But I'll just keep it there for
No,
now.
that's perfect. How did you phrase it? Paleo, almost Mediterranean.
Yeah,
That's perfect. Thank you.
yeah.
AJ, back to you, my friend. Any contraindications for someone on immunotherapy for esophageal cancer?
Boy, I never thought I would live long enough for there to be a category in medicine called immunotherapy. And now there are dozens upon dozens of different forms of immunotherapy. And the answer is it would be great
Mm,
if you used this ingredient alongside these immunotherapy drugs. Most of them, if not all, deal with, if you remember when Dr. Lazarus put up the two circles where you had the innate immune system on the left and the acquired, or I refer to it sometimes as your learned immune system on the right. Most of those drugs work primarily with your immune response on the right side, the acquired immunity. Now, I would say judge the use of this product not as a replacement for, but as an adjunct to any of the immunotherapies that are out there today, and many are out there today. Many more are being worked on. It's a very sophisticated form of science. But I think the more we get into these things, the better off we're all going to be. Understand that because our immune system as human beings has evolved, we didn't have any vials, we didn't have any commercials, we didn't have any vaccines, we didn't have all this stuff. If our immune system was not developed as it has, we would have never made it out of the cave. we would have been extinct a couple of 100,000 years ago. So our immune system is a miraculous system. As I often say, the good food, the good diet, the rest, the stress, all of these things you attend to, but it's your immune system that protects all of these systems and organs and tissues that you've worked so hard to develop. Ignore it. I often use the example of doing all of those things, great, but don't floss and brush your teeth. What's going to happen? Your teeth are going to fall out.
yeah.
So you've got to do something extra to support the immune response to get the best out of it. And that's what this compound does. It doesn't cause the immune system to do something it's not supposed to do. It does it more, better, and faster. And also, it was mentioned earlier about immune training. Actually, epigenetic changes in the way that our bone marrow brings these cells out from Jump Street. It's not no longer just self versus non-self. It's I'm a little bit extra attentive of things that I'm paying attention to. So all of these things, again, and it's important because some compounds will rev up the immune system, create inflammation, and in some circumstances, you don't want inflammation.
Yeah.
You want inflammation in an acute form, like when you sprain that ankle, when you have those blisters, but then you want it to do its job of healing and then be over with. And that's what this compound helps you to do.
That's perfect. Thank you, AJ. Actually, I have one for Ryan and AJ both. Ryan, if you want to speak to it first, can you speak to taking beta glucan with SIBO? Is it going to feed or exasperate the SIBO?
It's a great question. I am not sure. SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, in which, the small intestine has an overgrowth of bacteria that can cause over fermentation, causing, hydrogen and methane. That can be a very uncomfortable fullness and belching and burping. I guess my answer would be any of the prebiotics that would be in any of the products would potentially amplify or worsen that. But I know that there's a little bit of chicory, but I do not know if the dosage of the chicory in there would be enough to really flare a SIBO. I would think not. So that would be my best answer.
Perfect.
Yeah,
AJ, anything?
I would say you're exactly right. These are things that to be determined. We know though that complex carbohydrates, fiber, if you please, and one might consider this compound as a fiber, that your good gut bugs like it. They like to feed on it. So any glucan that's not taken up by your M cells through the gut, your good immune cell, excuse me, your good gut bacteria are really going to like it, and it's the diversity. When you say, Doc, the more diversity you have with all those millions and trillions of, some of the literature says you've got more things in your gut than you've got in your entire body as far as cells. So it's the competition amongst the various gut bugs that keep you from being overrun by those one or two nasty ones. And of course, with the overuse, abuse, and misuse of antibiotics for so long, they tend to just kind of wipe the slate clean. But if any going to survive, it's going to be the bad ones. So
Yeah.
be very, very intentional in trying to get the diversity of those gut bugs back.
That's perfect. Well, I think this is a good place to start kind of wrapping up. And Dr. Ryan, Natalia, we truthfully cannot thank you just enough for not only going through the journey, sharing the journey, all the prep, research, and just sheer will it took to get through it. But I've got one more question for both of you that we want to know, and it's really at that finish line in Miami. What was going through your head? I know it was a lot, but we want a little bit of a breakdown. What was happening in that moment when this journey is kind of coming to an end?
You want to take it, Natalia?
I'll go first. The first words that came out of my mouth when I crossed the finish line were, "We did it." And I said "we" because this really was a family adventure. It was obviously I was the one running, and Sienna ran with me on the last one. We crossed the finish line together, but every person in my family sacrificed quite a bit for mom to live her dream. And it was a magical moment we all got to share together. Um, my second thought was, how am I going to get my shoes off? Because everything was so swollen. I was really afraid of what the damage was when I was going to take my shoes off.
That is awesome. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
for sharing that internal look. How about you, Dr. Ryan?
Yeah, she beat me to it. We've talked about this. Was just so proud of her and so glad she was healthy. And our friends and our family were there. I was very present, and I recognized the magnitude of what was happening. She touched on it, but her sister's 40th birthday was the day after she finished Miami, and her mother's 70th birthday was the day before. So everyone came out. It was a milestone for her
Wow.
entire family. My family came out. Um, there was a lot of joy and a lot of proud moments. So it was relief. She's healthy. She's okay. Um, and I just wanted to help her take her shoes off. And then I ended up having to give her a piggyback ride all through South
There you
Beach,
go.
which we have some fun photos of.
Well, that is, that is awesome. I gotta say, Dr. Ryan, I think if there was a Husband of the Year award, I think you are top runner for it. Just all the support. And Natalia, I can't even hearing 5% of your story, I'm like, I could never. So y'all just coming on here and what a team the two of y'all have made for this epic adventure. We just can't thank you enough for it. Everybody in the chat, just blow it up, just thanking them for being here. And then AJ, my friend, just having your expertise on here, you started it all, the formulation, the purity, all the hard work that it took for us to be able to get here with where beta glucan is now and how it's affecting people like Dr. Ryan and Natalia is just mind blowing. So thank you all for joining us. Y'all, everyone, the link's still going to be in the chat if you want to purchase that Dr. Ryan Lazarus protocol. And then, of course, stick around. If you stick around, as soon as we're done here, we're going to be playing a very special video. It's going to have MDs, PhDs, everybody talking about how they're implementing beta glucan in their daily life and in their practices. So stick around, check it out. It's going to be starting in just a few minutes. We love all of you, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, everybody.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye,
See you
guys.
soon.
Pleasure.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Jill Carnahan. I am so excited to be here with Better Way Health to talk to you just a little bit about the power of beta glucans. I want to explore today some of the most exciting frontiers in longevity and immune science, especially how beta glucans can train your immune system for more resilience and healthier aging. For years, we've talked about the heart, the brain, the metabolism, and all the many things that play into longevity and anti-aging medicine. But now the conversation is changing. I recently presented at the Global Longevity Summit in Geneva, Switzerland, and we talked about immune resilience. The immune system is now recognized as one of the most powerful predictors of how we age, how resilient we are, and how long that we live. Groundbreaking studies like that in Aging Cell, the research from UT Health San Antonio shows that people with high immune resilience have a 69% lower risk of death and a biological age up to 15 years younger than their peers. But here's the challenge. As we age, our immune system naturally declines, a process known as immunosenescence. It drives this thing we call inflammation aging. You may have heard of it, the silent inflammation behind every chronic disease. The good news? Science has now discovered something called trained immunity. We now know that our innate immune system, once thought as untrainable, can actually learn and adapt. And one of the best studies, natural activators of this process of trained immunity, guess who? It's beta glucan, the hero of the show. Beta glucans are polysaccharides found in the cell walls of Baker's yeast. They bind directly to the immune receptors dectin-1 and complement receptor 3, awakening macrophages and natural killer cells. They enhance surveillance and improve balance across your immune system. Dozens of clinical trials show the beta glucan supports lower infection rates, better wound healing, improved stress resilience, healthier inflammation balance, and this occurs even in adults over the age of 60. So just so excited to be here with Better Way Health tonight. Sorry I could be live, but I wanted to be sure and record a special session just describing to you how much I've really loved using beta glucans in my clinical practice to improve immune resilience. It's actually as a core protocol of longevity and fighting infection and helping that innate immune system to be more trainable. I found it's protective. It helps restore, repair, and improve immune balance. And it does all of this without overstimulating the immune system. It's a really powerful molecule that can actually calm autoimmunity down at the same time as strengthening the innate immune system response to things like infections. So if you're ready to build lifelong resilience and improve your longevity and performance, beta-glucans should be at the core, whether you're a doctor using these in clinical practice or you're a patient just wanting to enhance your own immune system. There's nothing better. And I really enjoyed partnering with Better Way Health just due to the integrity of the company and the absolute quality of their product. It works. It's what I use in clinical practice. And I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this webinar. And thanks for saying hi to me tonight.
All right. Thank you to Dr. Jill Carnahan. You know what I love, Reggie, is yeah, I love the deep dive into the science, and we'll get some of that tonight too. But when you hear a practicing physician or clinician utilizing it, relying upon it, it doesn't happen if it doesn't work. And, you know, she's got a long track record as well of integrating it into her